Welcome to the Smarter Money Life podcast hosted by Andy Mattingly. Frequent guest on local TV news, regular segment on Indy Now TV, and a leader here at Forum Credit Union. Forum's mission is to help members lead their financial dreams, and in today's podcast, we're going to cover a topic that will help you improve your financial life. Are you considering starting a family? Will you have a new baby or child soon? Have you thought about the financial changes you might need to make? Hello, everyone. I'm Andy Mattingly, and I'm back today to talk to you about what you should expect to change with your budget when you're adding a child to the family. And with me today is a very important person because he's about to do this for the first time. It's Jim Catanzarite, Forum's AVP of Accounting, and he's going to share with us what he and his wife went through for their soon-to-be child that's coming in July. So we're going to kick it off here, Jim. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, good morning. Thanks for having me.
So first question that everyone comes up with, have you or your wife decided about the working status for either of you?
Yeah, this was a little bit of a tricky one for us. My wife was a public school teacher down here in Carmel, actually. And unfortunately, due to teacher salaries, things like that, it was a little bit of a difficult decision, looking at a break-even point between, okay, does Morgan stay home or, does she go back to work, just based on childcare costs. But, fortunately, she's in the middle of kind of a career path change, going to go work for a big-time home designer here in the Indianapolis area. So that helped us out significantly. So we will both be working. Fortunately, she'll be hybrid for a while, which will help us out from a childcare standpoint, still give Morgan the benefit of, being with the baby in those early months and all that kind of stuff, which is really important. So it's been good. We felt just with the rising, cost of childcare, a lot of inflationary pressure still out there, and based on the life that we'd like to give our child, that, it was good for us both to continue to work.
Yeah, that makes sense. So it sounds like you developed multiple income scenarios based on what was going to happen in your family. Can you share with us kind of how you went through those and maybe talk about some of the expenses that you kind of included in that? Because not everyone thinks about all the expenses with a child.
Yeah, me being the numbers guy, right when Morgan told me she was pregnant, that's the first thing I did was, make a spreadsheet to figure out what we were going to do. But
what was the name of that spreadsheet, by the way?
I got a lot of spreadsheets. I got a daycare cost spreadsheet. I got budget projections. I mean, I take what I do seriously, both personally. So, but yeah, we looked at the numbers with both of our salaries and all that kind of stuff, and kind of toured some daycares, saw the price range that we were going to be in based on what we wanted for our kid. And again, that's where we kind of were starting to calculate different income scenarios, and then. There's certain things as, a parent or for us, an upcoming parent that you can't really put a price tag on that you have to kind of factor in a little bit too, which is, the mom spending time with the baby, myself being able to spend some time with the baby. So, we looked at all that kind of stuff. And I still, from an expense standpoint, it's probably a broken record for all the newer parents out there or, parents who have someone in daycare. It's incredibly expensive. Our daycare costs are going to be more than our mortgage payment. So it's a big line item. And, we have a personal budget. And one thing I did was kind of do a projection to say, okay, if Morgan's income were to drop significantly, if she were to go part-time with this daycare cost, what does that look like? Where are some kind of softer expenses that might be able to be cut out if we have a tough month or something's going on? So, we looked at all those things, and there's other stuff involved too when you talk about the added expenses. I mean, obviously you have diapers and wipes, formula, all that kind of stuff. I mean, we're incredibly blessed to have a really good circle of family and friends who have helped us out with that here on the front end. So that's been nice. But, there's a lot that goes into it, medical costs, all that kind of stuff. So I think really just trying, don't wait till month 8 to put a projection together. You need to do that immediately. You need to do that once you figure out your childcare costs, because that's really going to be the heftiest thing for most people. And fortunately, I would say too, from an accounting perspective, understand how you can utilize, the tax code to your favor, because now you probably qualify for the childcare tax credit. So that's going to give you a few $1,000s to help you out, at the end of the year. So you really looking at all those things is important. But I would say, everyone knows that the childcare costs are a little bit out of control right now, and you really got to plan for those.
Yeah, your child's coming in the right time, you get the credit. My last child was born on December 22nd, so I did get a nice extra break that year that I wasn't planning on because he wasn't due until January. So that is something that does make a difference. So let's talk a little bit about maybe some of the key moves you've made before the baby arrived. So you've talked about your budget and all of that, but are there other things that you did?
Yeah, I think the budgeting was the biggest thing. Just having the numbers on a piece of paper to really understand, this is something that I do every day, so I understand it. But, my wife, not as much. I mean, admittedly so for her, just like I really don't understand how to teach kindergartners like she does.
Well, you might have to learn that soon.
Yeah, no kidding. But really sitting down with her and showing her that was a big move that cost me nothing to do. But I think in terms of moving money around, it's paying down debt. That's got to be the biggest thing, limiting your interest expense. I mean, just like a lot of other families out there of young parents, we both have student loans. Fortunately, we were smart and refinanced those in like 2020, 2021 when rates were pretty low. So we have some benefit there, but really looking at those, understanding, any other, pieces of debt we might have that are higher interest that we want to pay down, and just, being responsible in those 9 months leading up. And it's funny, you get caught in between a little bit because for us, this was unplanned. So, we had 9 months where it's like, we want to jam all this stuff in. We want to, take this trip, or, I'm going to get a bunch more rounds of golf in because, who knows what's going to happen. But you're also trying to balance that with, okay, we need to save some money here and we need to pay down some debt and things like that. So you'll find that balance. But I think that's the biggest thing. And then I think just getting a handle on our overall spend. I mean, we were two, younger people with two incomes, so we didn't really have a whole lot of responsibility other than our house and our two dogs. So really understanding our spend and getting control of that, understanding, okay, what's a want, what's a need, those basic things. That was pretty important for us as well.
That's very good. So as you're planning, have you looked into how much your healthcare cost may change with, because I know at some places there's spousal coverage, but then when you add family coverage, it goes up quite a bit. So have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, we have, and not to do a shameless plug for Forum, but fortunately we're in pretty good hands here from an insurance standpoint, and our premiums are pretty low, so that's been good. It hasn't been a big enough jump where it would affect our budget overly, too materially. I think the biggest thing though is understanding how to utilize your HSA if you have one, just for the fortuitous, tax, with the code and all that kind of stuff, being able to take the deduction at the front end and, having tax-free distributions on that is a big deal. I mean, you essentially have, $7,500 of tax-free income, or I should say tax-free savings. So I think that's a big deal. And we made a point to max that out last year. We're doing that again this year because the biggest thing I look at past premiums is, our deductible. And really understanding that, and that's something I've sat down with our HR team about to understand and make sure I had enough saved up to cover all the out-of-pocket expenses. So, which is good. I mean, you get that favorable tax treatment, which is nice because now we have, $7,500 of joint income that I don't have to pay income tax on, so I get a little bit of a benefit there. Plus, it's forcing me to make sure I have enough money saved for, what's going to be probably a big medical bill for both my wife and the baby down the road.
Sure. Have you looked into the flexible spending account for daycare?
I have not. I don't really know all the rules around that, but I know I have talked to our HR department here, and there's some different tax advantages, and I think you get phased out at some point. But no, I haven't really looked at that.
And that is something that usually people don't think about until after you get into the first year of going on, because it depends upon what daycare you're going to, whether you can use those funds, and you have to use them or lose them, which is always kind of interesting. But it is another tax advantage way that you can potentially do that. When my kids were younger, I did use the flexible spending for it, but we didn't do the full amount because we knew they weren't going to stay in, the full time. I mean, it's very expensive for under 2 years old, and then it gets a little less. So you got to plan for all of that.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
always good.
Yep.
That's always good. So we've talked a lot about before the baby gets here. What are some of the things that you think that you've kind of got on your list or agenda to do after the baby gets here?
Yeah, we've already kind of made some moves on that to a certain extent. I mean, the biggest thing I've already touched on is maxing out our HSA. We've accomplished that, which has been good. I think the life insurance and its estate planning, especially for younger people, kind of flies under the radar, but it's important. I mean, my whole goal, I come from a family of financial planners, so we understand life insurance to a certain extent. But my whole goal is for, Maureen and I to have close to $500,000 to $1 million of coverage for each parent, which we're pretty close to that. And that gave us enough to cover any debt that we might have out there. Because I think that's the biggest thing when you look at life insurance. You want to make sure that you have all your debt covered with that death benefit. So we've done pretty well there. My brother's an attorney, so I'll be giving him a call soon with the estate planning. And, I would say I don't think it has to be anything fancy from an estate planning standpoint. I think it's just, if it's a boilerplate will, as long as you have something in place, I think that's important. I think the biggest thing early on is, if something tragic happens, who's going to take care of your child? So I think that's a big thing, which we've already kind of had those conversations that are not easy to have, but, you need to be an adult and absolutely have them. And I think the other thing, too, is obviously the college planning. 529 plan form offers a great product here, the Sprout account that we'll be opening as well. So that gives us 2 savings vehicles. And I think the other thing we want to do is try to, if we have the means to do it each year, set another $1,000 in addition aside in some sort of other higher yielding long-term CD or treasury and take advantage of those higher rates right now. Because I think that just gives you another, kind of investment vehicle to get some pretty risk-free growth for your kid. So, because I think when I think of, my life coming through college, not only could I have used that money in college, and don't get me wrong, my parents helped me out significantly, and I'm very thankful for that. But it's buying a house, getting married, all those kind of big expenses that hit you in those first 5 years after school that if you start saving for them, I feel like as a parent now, you can kind of make the burden a little bit easy on yourself down the road and also on your child. So
yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So one of the things I think that parents, new parents think about is they think about the expenses the first couple of years. But and I'm not trying to scare you with this, but currently the cost to raise a child to 18, I don't know if you saw that on what
it is. Yeah.
It's like, almost $300,000.
Yeah.
Now a lot of that is other things that you're doing. But I think for parents, one of the things to remember, there are some expenses that are going to go up that maybe they don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
Babysitting. You may have family, but you can't call on them all the time, and there will be adult nights out.
Right.
But like increased travel and vacation expenses. It's, there's new things that you have to consider about what you're doing with that. So as you think about not maybe in the first 2 years, but as you go on, what are some of the other things that you think we should make sure we share with people to say, hey, you remember these are some of the things that are going to come up when, as your child gets older?
Yeah, I think the vacation thing is the biggest one that we've talked about because, and I mean, overall, you got to look at all your expenses. I mean, I don't really see any, you'd hope inflationary pressure subsides a little bit over the next 18 months or so, but those prices are still going to stay at their same level. It's not like they're all going to come back to where we were, before COVID or anything. But I think the vacation thing's a big one because, we want to be able to have the means to give our kids experiences of seeing other places outside of central Indiana, whether that be internationally or, domestically. But I think that's something we've definitely done. And, we have a couple of different, they're not huge by any means, but brokerage accounts where I have, I've kind of split them out where some of it's for savings and some of it is specifically labeled a vacation fund. And mixing those investments to kind of achieve those goals. And I've gotten some advice from my brother who's a CFP and that kind of stuff. But, that's something that you can kind of do. And there's a lot of different accounts out there. I know Forum has some. Fidelity has some where you can automatically, deduct and put funds into these brokerage accounts and, invest in anything you might want, which I think is good. I think that's one way to kind of save money, kind of put it on autopilot, which is nice. I think the other thing too is utilizing, I don't want to be the guy who's all about credit cards, but utilizing your credit card rewards is also a big deal. Morgan and I have been able to take some really good trips just from, having points and miles and things like that. Now, that comes with the caveat of don't go spend a bunch of money so you can get points or miles.
Right.
But it's, doing those kind of things is, I think, a good way to be able to save and do those vacations. But you're absolutely right. You really need to understand that the dollar that you save today is not necessarily going to be worth the same amount in 3-4 years when you want to take that vacation. So I think as a parent, when Morgan and I talk, we understand that we have to make personal sacrifices. Maybe I'm not going to go golf every Sunday now. That way we can save that $90 or $100 to, put in a vacation fund for a couple years down the road to take the kids to Disney or something. So I think at the beginning you don't really think about that, but now that, Morgan is 3 weeks from having the baby, I'm definitely thinking about that a lot more. So absolutely, I think that's something that you need to look at, and for us, vacation's a priority because, we want our kid to have different experiences that we've had.
Yeah, and I think it's important for all parents to remember that you work to have fun and spend time with your family. You're not working just to have a family. And there's all those things. You go on vacation and you don't think about it. I remember when we went on vacation with a 6-month-old to the beach, and then we're out there and we're like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of sun out here. And so we go to the store because we see everyone else has the little canopy that you can put the 6-month-old in. And we're like, we didn't even think about that. And yeah, it was like, $70 or $80 at the time for it, but it was worth it. Otherwise, we would have had a ruined vacation because we'd have been spending the whole time, one of us, in time. So
Runaway costs real quick.
yes. Yeah. But it's one of those things that you plan for those things. And I think that's important for, everyone who's thinking about a family or has already started a family, is all the things that you've talked about are all things about being planned and being prepared. And then you made a good point about the fact that it is about trade-offs. It's not that one thing is better than the other. It's new things. And a lot of the things that you've shared here are things for good for everyone to understand. And, I know that you were sort of making fun about having spreadsheets for all of this. And it is something, though, that people should do. Like, you've got to put those expenses down and see how it's going to work, because you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think there are plenty of tools out there. I use Excel, but there are plenty of apps. There are plenty of ours included financial institutions that have tools out there for you to use. So, there's no shortage of, sheets or PDFs or however format you want to work in. There's no shortage of tools out there for you to just write down what you spend, understand your income, all that kind of stuff. And to your point, one thing I just thought about, like with vacation in particular and trade-offs, is we enjoy flying everywhere, but you need to weigh the flying and the driving and all that kind of stuff, because, for example, we're going to try, when the baby's 3 weeks old, Morgan's family's from out in Philadelphia, New Jersey. They go to the Jersey Shore a lot to trek it out to New Jersey. Now, normally, I'm not driving 10 hours to New Jersey. That's going to be a flight. But with all the stuff and, the hassle with the baby, and you're right, there's going to be things that pop up where, what if I got to buy this beach canopy? I can't fit it in my luggage, and then I'm leaving that thing behind. That's
Yes.
$80 down the tubes.
Yeah.
So I think looking at, how you get to your vacations, where you go, looking at things affordably is definitely something that you need to do. And yeah, the trade-offs is a big deal that I'm starting to figure out.
Yeah,
quickly.
and it's even with one child, but if you add to your family and you have, 2 that are under the age of 3, there's a lot of stuff you have to take with you.
Yeah.
There's not enough of you to carry it through the airport.
Right.
Trust me, we've tried to do that before. And once we added the 3rd child, we're like, okay, we have to drive where? Because
Yeah.
1, it's the cost of tickets, but 2, just all the stuff for 3 young kids, you just can't take it all.
Exactly.
Because they're no help. Trust me, they're no help carrying anything through the airport because they're just too excited.
I know it.
Or they're too tired.
I know. We went with my brother and sister-in-law a few years back to Disney with their 3 kids, and we flew. And my brother in his best man speech at our wedding admitted that there's no way they would have been able to do that without other people there. So it was interesting to watch from my perspective when I'm like, man, I do not want to do this by myself.
So I want to talk just a little bit about, because I want to kind of circle back into some of this pre-planning stuff. what advice would you give to people because you're like 3 weeks away, so you've got a lot of stuff. What advice would you give to people when they think about, well, what do I need to have before the baby comes? Do you need to have everything, or will you get some of that stuff that you maybe won't have to buy?
Like I said, we were really fortunate. We have a really close-knit family and group of friends, and they were unbelievably generous to us for that, including our friends here at Forum. And we got the majority of the stuff that we registered for, but I didn't plan as if we were going to. I went into it planning, okay, what if we don't get anything, and understanding what my outlay had to be. And some of those things on the registry and stuff were wants, others were needs. So then you're compartmentalizing that a little bit. But that's how I think you need to go into it. Obviously do the registry. You're going to have people who will buy you things, all that kind of stuff. But I think it's really important to understand, okay, what if this doesn't get bought? One thing in particular was the dresser that we needed for that room. That didn't get bought. Well, we had one on there that was probably on the higher end of the price scale, so we dialed that back a little bit. So that's what I would say is never assume anything that you're going to get, and understand, okay, this is the outlay if we don't get anything. I would as well, encourage when, my wife had her shower, I had a diaper party with all the guys, fed them very well, made sure there were drinks available and stuff. So I think that goes a long way too, because you'll get plenty of diapers and wipes by doing that. I mean, when you invite a bunch of guys over to your house, as long as you have, steaks or something going on, I think they're going to reward you for that. So.
Yeah, and diapers is something that's great. You can never have too many of them.
No. And I mean, I think it's really nice now that a lot of retailers will let you do an even exchange for diapers. If, let's say your baby's out of ones and you have a box of ones, you can go to Target, they'll give you a credit, and you can go find, the closest quantity in twos. So that's kind of nice. And then, definitely look at your big box retailers like Costco, Sam's Club, stuff like that, to see, do they have the diapers you want? What's the price look like? All that kind of stuff. So, and I always make sure I keep out for other retail. I mean, Target will do random deals where if you buy 100 diapers, you get a $30 gift card or something. So, vary it up. Make sure you watch out for those things.
And I know that people don't like to share information, but sharing information on baby registries and things like that also get you lots of coupons. Yes. And retailers want you to know that they're out there, and you can get a lot of coupons. And like what you talked about, watching all these retailers that want to cater to families and looking for those discounts is really important. So to leave you with just a little bit of advice as we wrap up here. One, have lots of onesies, because when a baby is up to about 12 weeks old, the favorite outfit ends up becoming a onesie wrapped in a blanket because they go through every other outfit that you have.
Yeah, I'd say we have like 75 or more onesies right now.
You are well planned then.
And I told my wife, when those blowout diapers occurred, that thing's going right in the trash. I'm not doing this whole bleaching or anything.
Yes.
I will go to Target and buy another $5 pack of onesies.
Yes, that is so true. And I think that just leads me to this point of a lot of people want to have a lot of cute clothes and everything, but then when you have, and this because you have nieces and nephews, that's not like when they get a little bit older and they start doing stuff, but at the beginning, it's like the onesie and the blanket is your favorite outfit for sure.
I swear our closet in the nursery looks like a Carter's right now. And I'm like, how many of these things are still going to have the tags on them that never get worn?
Yes, yes. So. Well, Jim, thank you so much for joining us today. I think you've provided a lot of great advice for young families or people starting their family the first time. And I think what they can learn from you is just the whole point about planning and being smart about your money. So I really appreciate your time today.
Yep, absolutely. And it's not going to be perfect. It never is, but it's just about doing your best and having a plan. That's what it's all about. So.
This has been another episode of the Smarter Money Life podcast powered by Forum Credit Union. Please leave your thoughts in the comments and be sure to look for our next episode wherever you get your podcast. Remember, now is a great time to make a difference in your financial life. Until next time.